here today we have Henry Richards, and Henry is going to tell you a little bit about himself here in just a few minutes. But thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this episode and being the first episode with what we're doing here. And I think our audience is going to learn a lot about you and probably a lot about what we do as well. So, you okay if we start this out with a prayer?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, cool. All right. Dear Lord Jesus, I just pray that you will be glorified in this episode, that we'll cover what you want us to cover, and that we'll just be able to speak freely about things. And in your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Can you start by just kind of sharing your life story, like where you grew up, what shaped you on early on in your life, how you got into things, and we'll go into talking about what you do and your business and stuff as well.
Okay. Yeah, so I grew up in Mansfield, Ohio, kind of out in the country. Early childhood, from a health standpoint, I mean, my parents never really worked out, did, any healthy food options were McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Burger King, all the above. I think that would be probably more prevalent for later on in our conversation.
Sure.
Grew up around a shop. My dad, he owned a body shop, worked on old cars. Grandpa died when I was 3 months old, left me an old Model A Ford sedan, so I always kind of had this thing for older cars. Through school, I spent a lot of time looking at magazines, reading books about, the custom car builds. That was always where my passion was. So, fast forward along, I started my first car build right about the time I graduated high school, and just been nonstop ever since then, working on cars and building the shop.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about like your childhood, and whatever you're comfortable sharing is great, but like, your parents and how that was and how you grew up, and like, and also kind of like a little bit of your testimony as far as your faith goes and whatnot.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not sure where to go with the growing up thing. I wasn't super active as a kid. Like, yeah, I did baseball on and off. I got to a point where I wasn't really super into sports. I kind of gravitated more towards the cars. Mom and dad weren't super active other than work. Mom worked super hard to help support a family. Dad, he did the same thing, and yeah.
Sure. Okay. Gotcha. And then, so where did you grow up? Like what town and whatnot did you grow up in?
So I grew up in a little town called Epworth, Crestview School District, not far from here.
Okay. And then, tell me a little bit about your faith journey.
So the faith journey, I had a grandma who, talked about God. As a kid, I, knew of a God, but, I wasn't real sure about that. I always kind of knew there was something more. I know when, the shop, right before the shop took off, there was a time where, things were rough. No money coming through. I questioned, whether or not I should be building cars, and that was the first time I really hit the knee in the shop and prayed that, hey, if I'm supposed to be doing this, let me know. If I'm not, I had a job offer at a welding shop I could have took. And, that was the first time I really kind of hit my knees and asked God what to do. And the next day I got a phone call from one of my first big builds. So
okay, cool.
That was a pretty sweet deal. It was like definitely an answer to that.
Yeah. Talk about that first build, and then we'll kind of dive in a little bit to like your shop and how all of that formulated and everything.
Yeah. So I'd say my first build, I was junior in high school. Wanted to build a Model A. Didn't really think I was going to build cars for people as much as, I just wanted to build cars for myself. So there was a local guy that had this crazy huge collection of cars, and he passed away, and I was able to get one of the old Model A's. And so I built that car. Took a lot, graduation money. I was racing radio control cars. I sold all that stuff. Just anything I could do to come up with the money to get the car built. We did a lot of custom motorcycle paint. And so I got that car built. It would have been right around, I graduated in 02, so it would have been done in 03. And as I was finishing that car up, a neighbor guy wanted me to build a car. And then before long, I had two neighbor guys that I was building cars for, a 31 Ford Coupe and a 51 Chevy pickup. So that was kind of the first couple of jobs, but I didn't know anything about running a business back then or how to save money. It was like as soon as I would get paid for doing some stuff, then we'd go out and party or drink or, blow the money. And so early on, I had some builds, but I didn't really have the idea on how to run a business.
Gotcha. So what are some key moments that led you to becoming the man and the husband and the father you are today?
So I went through a kind of a wild path that took us out to Denver, Colorado. I worked for a shop out there. That was the first time I didn't really live at home, so I got to, basically pay rent, pay overhead, buy groceries. I had to be smart with my money, so that kind of taught me how to run a business. When I got back to Ohio from Denver, I was in Denver right around the time the economy started to sink, that 07, 08 period. So we got back, and then I was, kind of taking what I learned there with the way they ran a business. I think they had a lot of loans, and there was things going on that, kind of made the bank the boss, not them the boss. So one thing led to another, and I'm trying to start this business from scratch, and, just the economy wasn't great, and there was a time where I realized, it was like, if I was going to do this, I needed to, turn the business over to somebody maybe just a little bigger than me, and that's where I kind of started hitting the knees in the shop and asking God what I was supposed to do. And that kind of led me down a path that I met a girl in the gym. I had a little girl, and I wanted to get healthy. So then I met a girl in a gym, and we were able to, she invited me to church, and I'm kind of messing this all up.
No, it's all right. Yeah, just keep going. Yeah. I mean, are you okay saying your wife's name?
Yeah. So I met Amber. You can cut all that messed up part, right?
You did a great job. You did great.
But I met Amber. She invited me to church. That started to strengthen my relationship with God. Really strengthened my faith to a point where I took that back to the business and kind of gave it to him in a way that like he built the business. Mm-hmm. So now the business is a spot where, it's everything we do or have, we can, give back to God.
Yeah, for sure. So, are you okay rewinding and talking? So you were married before?
Wasn't married, but I had a daughter before.
Yeah, and your daughter, are you okay saying your daughter's name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Olive, she's grown up in, a little bit of a split family home, between your the previous person you were with and then Amber, and so then she's grown up in the shop with you and seeing all that. Like how has her being part of your life has changed like what you've done in the shop and those types of things?
Well, so when Olive was first born, I came from a family that wasn't active. We didn't eat right. I was somewhere around 360 pounds back then. Mm-hmm. And I remember taking her outside to go sled ride, and we went up the hill, down the hill, went halfway up the hill, down the hill, then I went in the house. Like I was exhausted. And I thought, I don't want to be that dad that can't, move around or play with my kids or even wear my kids out, because I'm wore out just barely doing anything. So I decided then to get into a gym. I got into a gym, started working out, and things kind of came to a head with me and her mom. About that time, was when I was trying to, maybe look towards God, and, I'd bounce around to a couple different churches and stuff. And I felt like maybe the closer I got to him, the farther apart Allah's mom and I got. And it got to a point where, we kind of split up, and I was going to the gym regularly then. But I still was struggling with, old Henry. Like, if I had a rough time, I would go out and drink. I, wasn't putting all the God stuff into play. And then at the gym one day, a girl invited me to a church.
Mm-hmm.
And
this girl was Amber?
That girl's my wife, yeah.
Okay.
So she invited me to church. And when I started going to a good church and learning more about, like, what is expected from a man, as far as a husband goes, I wasn't really taught those things. As far as what's expected of a father, I wasn't taught those things. So that was where I think the biggest shift was between, like, becoming the man I am now and the man I was then.
Okay, awesome. Can we dive in a little bit? Like, I know our goal is not to talk a ton about your shop, but I'm sure that the audience that's going to see this will be really intrigued to hear kind of about, we talked a little bit about how the shop initially started and how it, has grown, but you're a pretty humbled guy and won't elaborate unless you're asked too much about that. And some of your awards speak for themselves. So why don't you talk about Steadfast MFG and some of the awards you've won and some of the cars you have built over the years and some of the things that you're excited about, and anything you're willing to share with the audience that's upcoming that you're looking to do.
Okay. So I'd say the first real build for us was about 2012. That was the year my daughter was born. And I thought if I was going to, take the shop to the next level, I needed to go all in. And so I built a green 32 Ford sedan. And that car ended up on the cover of Riders Journal in a really, really hard group. There was about 20 really nice cars showed up to Good Guys Indy. We took a top 5 for Hot Rod of the Year. So we were picked out of a lot of cars just as a top 5 car, and that put the shop on the map. Shortly after that,
Is this why you painted that car olive green?
Yeah. Well, when they asked me, when they were doing the interview at Good Guys, it's like, how'd you come up with that color? And I told them, it was that transition from formula to green beans with my little girl. One day I opened up a diaper and was like, oh man, this is the color. But
So you painted it baby poop green.
Baby poop green, yeah. So
awesome.
I knew I wanted to put a color on that car because the car, as far as the way it sat, the way it looked, was completely different than all the 32s before that.
Yeah.
And I thought if I painted it the same color everybody was used to seeing, they wouldn't take that car for what it was. So I had this kind of idea that if I didn't put a color on it that was on a famous car in the last 5 years, as far as the award circuits go, that car would get noticed, and it got noticed. We've had to share the paint code a handful of times.
Yeah, I love that paint color, man.
So
that's really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But that car put the shop on the map. Then we went ahead and I met a good customer, Norm Bradley. He had me build a couple of cars for him. One of the cars we built actually won Hot Rod of the Year in 2020.
Okay.
There was a Camaro at that time I was building for myself that we sold to get the new building up and going. So that car I did a bit of fabrication on, and it was finished by a friend's shop. And that also won Street Machine of the Year in 2020.
Yeah.
So since then, we've done a few cars. We do a lot of fabrication for big shops that go on to be award-winning cars. We did a car this year, or this last year, for Triple Crown. Went down and finished out of, I'd say there was about 200 cars really competing for awards, and we finished in the Elite 10. So they take the top 30, break it down to the top 10, and then from the top 10 they award like Street Rod, Street Machine, all those. So we were able to get Elite 10, the Poteet Memorial Award, and then the Rad Rods by Troy pick, which was a really big deal because he's the best builder in the world. So
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, and how many guys do you have working for you at the shop?
So right now there's 5. We've got a couple of retired guys that come in and out of the shop, help out, part-time. So
Yeah.
looking to add to the shop. We've just got such a workload that we could definitely use more employees.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you were telling me kind of at launch, you bought some new equipment recently, and
Yeah. I thought I was to a point, where we're kind of done adding equipment to the shop, and I just did a school down in Texas just to refine a few things. And there was a couple tools that I thought, I don't know if I can live without. They just make the job more efficient and that much nicer.
Yeah. I mean, I find it intriguing every time I talk about you, and I always have to be super careful, but through some of my friends that I've met that know you, like they're just minds are blown that know cars way better than I do and what you can do, and just visiting your shop is insane. Like to think that exists in Belleville, Ohio, just out in the middle of nowhere, is super cool to me, and that you're able to win awards that you are winning and stuff. And so I kind of want to tell the story a little bit about how you came to us here at Cadro Healing Therapies, and this was when we were at the old building, and this was probably 3 years ago, right? It was right at the beginning of like when we had opened that shop, and I'm not even sure how you found us. I'm guessing it was probably through Facebook or something, but I believe that it was kind of divine intervention for sure. So when you came to us, you rolled up on one of your Harleys, and you were probably like 60 pounds heavier than you are today.
Yep.
Yeah. And so when you pulled up, I was like, oh man, who is this dude? Like, he looks like he's straight out of the Hells Angels. and I want to talk about that if you're comfortable with that too. But and I was like, man, this dude's kind of looks scary. Like, do I need to have my pistol on me or something? Like, I was just like, man, he's big, burly. He could probably kick my butt, and I probably don't want to mess with him. But then, like, getting to know you, I realized you're more of a teddy bear than you are a big mean dude. Like, you've meant a lot to me over the times that. But that was pretty intriguing to meet you and learn what you do, because you're so humble that I had to sit and pull out of you what you were going to do. And through that, you've sent us a ton of patience, and we really appreciate that. But that's kind of how I first met you. And do you have anything to add to that at all?
Yeah, well, I just, my neighbor Pete and I, we're both, getting up to our 40s and just feeling super fatigued all the time. I know Pete runs a lot. I work in the shop a lot and then do some lifting. And I noticed from the first time I got into a gym to 10 years later, trying to, motivate and move, there was a huge lack of energy. If I did work out, I felt like I was dragging and just tore down for like a matter of days afterwards. And Pete mentioned, he knew a few people doing like the pellet therapy. So when we started looking into testosterone pellet therapy, we both agreed like, hey, maybe this would help us with, just feeling slow or worn down or beat. And the more we researched, we found that there was a local place, Cadro, that was doing the pellet therapy. And we both agreed like, hey, we're going to come check you out. And so I think that's what got us over there in the first place.
Okay, awesome. So we kind of talked a little bit about this, but a few years ago, despite your like professional success, you started noticing changes in your energy, your mood, your drive, and how you showed up at home. What were those struggles like? And then how did having low hormones affect your daily life and your marriage, and especially your role as a father?
So when I first got to the gym, I would have been in my mid-20s, mid to late 20s. I noticed, I'd work out. I had the more energy to work out. So I would work out. The recovery, would take a couple days or so, and then that got better with time. So the first time I started out close to 360 and went down to 235 in a year. As life went on and as the business got busier, I noticed making time for the gym was a lot harder. Mm-hmm. So the more I kind of dove into the business and getting the new shop up and going and stuff, I just really slacked at that. So I noticed at home, it was like at the end of a long work day, my feet hurt so bad that I would want to go in and sit down. So I wasn't able to help Amber, do dishes or laundry or, even if she wanted to sweep. It's just like I was ready to be done for the day. I know with every time I tried working out, it felt like almost like flu-like symptoms for a matter of days afterwards. Just super fatigued, tired. Knew I wasn't being the dad I wanted to be with Olive. So, going to the pool, it's like I never was really at a spot where I wanted to take my shirt off or, I just was never comfortable with me. So, that led me basically over to you to do the pellet therapy.
Yeah. And you, yeah. And then, so we talk, like in our clinic, we do all forms of hormone therapy. We choose pellets or injectables. We kind of let the patient decide which route they would like to go. We set the dosing and stuff. What made you feel in your research that pellet therapy was the best for you?
So even if I'm to take vitamins, there's days I'll get busy in the morning. There's times that I'll forget the vitamins. Whether it's a prescription that you have to take, I'm not good with that. It's one last thing to deal with. So with the injections, the thing I wasn't excited about with those is having to remember to take them on time all the time. So with the pellets, after they were inserted, I wouldn't have to worry about it for X amount of time. Mm-hmm. I think with you and I, we found out with me, because I don't run marathons and because I don't smoke, it would last me right around 6 months every time we did a pellet injection. So it's like I have to worry about it twice a year.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 times a year, at the most if somebody used the pellets quicker than my body did. But sure. So I just like the idea of being able to jump into the pellet therapy, be able to just forget about it and just let them do their job.
Awesome. Yeah. I think I think pellets are a really great option. I have a lot of guys that do both, and I have some that start with pellets, then whatever social media kicks out there, then they're like, hey, I want to switch to injectables or whatever, and I'm okay with that. And some of them love the injectables and stay on them, and some of them decide that they want to come back to the pellets. And either way, I'm okay with as far as being their providers. But I do have a lot that will come back to the pellets because of that ease of use, and mm-hmm. and we can dial it in so perfect for each individual, which is pretty cool. So did you have any hopes or fears coming into like therapy? What did you expect was going to happen to you?
So I guess I didn't really know what to expect. You read horror stories on the internet about like, oh, testosterone is bad for this, bad for that. And it was like, you made me feel really comfortable when we went through kind of the blood work. I mean, that's the first thing you do. It's not like you're starting to give me testosterone without knowing my numbers. And once you started to explain, numbers and like, basically, this was what it would mean for prostate, this, and this. And it was like, once we cleared all those things and knew that I was an eligible candidate, I didn't really have any scares or anything. I was hoping to, get my energy back. I mean, that was the energy recovery. If I was to work out, I was hoping to gain all those things. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So for the audience members that don't know, like one of the things that we really strive to do is sit down with you and treat you like a human, and spend time with each patient, usually about an hour worth of time every time, and really help them understand what their labs mean. And that's always tough if you're working in insurance-based medicine, which I have. Like we can't spend that time with you in insurance-based medicine. It's about volume and not the quality of medicine you're providing. And a lot of doctors out there provide really great quality, but that comes at the expense of them losing money oftentimes. And unfortunately, that's just kind of how our healthcare system's set up. So here we pride ourselves in spending that time with you so that you understand it. And that, I feel like that's really a big thing.
Yep. That made me feel super comfortable. I know it was maybe the day after pellet therapy, you called and, hey, just checking on you. How are you feeling? I mean, that meant the world to me. And I think 3-4 days after that, you just called to check one more time, and that made me feel super comfortable.
Yeah, those were our early days when I
didn't know.
doing most of the calls, but now at least our girls call and check, and we have that open door policy that you can call at any time, and if there's something that we need to get back to you on, we definitely will. So yeah, that's awesome. So were there any fears that you had going into therapy?
No, not really.
Yeah, just willing to give it a whirl. And,
I was feeling so just blah that I was ready to try anything just to get that energy back.
Sure. Okay. Awesome. There's a lot of people that, a lot of men, like we were talking about at lunch, like won't come to us until something stops working. Like men are oftentimes good at doing like preventative maintenance on their vehicles or things that are important to them, but oftentimes neglect their body.
Yep.
And, don't get labs checked, don't go to the doctor regularly. And we kind of look at this as preventative care essentially, because we know that hormones are so important in our body. So, and how they function. And then women, all of my women patients who get testosterone therapy are they're quick. As soon as something's wrong, they know they need to be in there and get it fixed, which is kind of cool. But I wish guys were more like that, because we could prevent a lot of things from happening versus waiting till you're 40 or 50 to come in. And
well, like we talked about at lunch, you said, guys don't usually jump on testosterone therapy until something downstairs quits working.
Right.
And I read a little bit about how like it ups your libido and all that. And I didn't really think that was an issue. It was just I was tired of being worn out all the time and feeling down. And so like I didn't think that was an issue until I'd say it's probably about that 3 to 4 week mark right after the pellets. I woke up one morning with morning wood.
Yeah.
And I thought, wait a minute, what happened here? Like where'd that come from?
Right.
Well, and then I noticed maybe the next night or a night after, it was like I went to roll over in bed and I was like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
So that was kind of one of the first things that I noticed. So yeah, if a guy does have them problems, but that's not what I was going for. So I noticed, I would say it was probably about that 4 to 5 week range where like I started waking up earlier. I wasn't really much of a morning person. And then it just seemed like in the morning, it was like, man, I was like ready to go. And I noticed that ramped up, and I ran with it for, I would say probably about 2.5 months in the shop where I wasn't doing anything different. I was just strictly, on testosterone. But then you and I started talking about the working out side. So when I started working out, it was almost like just pouring gasoline on a fire. Like I noticed like the more I threw at my body, like the more like, let's go, my body felt. Yeah. So when I started, making the gym a regular thing, I started doing some running. It was just night and day. Like it seemed like the more I did, the more my body wanted to do. The muscle building thing was nuts.
Yeah. And that's not our goals here, is to, get the gym rats in here. Like I just want the better all well-being for most people. And, that fatigue you talked about, the just lack of motivation, not being a morning person. Like those are all big things that testosterone can fix. And
And I mean, I didn't take testosterone with the idea I was going to start going to the gym 2 hours a day. It was just, it seemed like I was waking up so early and I had all this energy. Like I wanted to do something with it early in the morning just to calm me down through the day. And so that's where I got into, and I don't know if you'll show pictures with this, but you've got the before and afters of when like I started in the gym. I'm fine with that. Yeah. But and then it was just like, I started noticing muscles growing. Then the big thing I noticed was like the midsection fat starting to wear off. And it just seemed like the more, I throw at the T, the more that it wanted as far as that goes. So
yeah, that's awesome. So get on to our next page here. So since starting testosterone therapy about 3 years ago, what are your most noticeable differences in how you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally on a day-to-day basis?
So physically, the waking up early, the energy, at the gym, it didn't seem like no matter how much I would lift or how much I would throw at, I didn't notice that fatigue and that wear like I did before. I mean, all the way up to the point where I think even in my like mid-20s when I started working out, I think I would have possibly even had low T then in comparison to the way I felt now. So I noticed that, yeah, just the energy, now the mental clarity was a whole nother thing. Like there's times where Amber and I will be going through the day and I'll be like, I forgot, can you take the garbage out before you go? Or can you change the laundry before you go? And I would always forget those things. And I think she thought they were an excuse, but I didn't really remember. And then I noticed as far as mental clarity goes, there's things I was remembering that she was forgetting. So I did notice a lot with the mental clarity. Emotionally, only one time did I have kind of like a moment where early on when the tea was starting to kick in and maybe my hormones were a little off, we got into an argument over wrapping a glass pan with tin foil or saran wrap. And I wanted to use tin foil and she wanted me to use saran wrap. And like I started to go off, like I was going to break the pan on the ground. and when we looked at each other and laughed about what was going on, she said that she'd come up with a code. Do you watch many Marvel movies?
I have seen a few of them, yeah.
So like to calm the Hulk down, the girl will put her hand on his chest and say, "The sun is getting low, big guy."
Yeah.
So she said anytime I start to have one of those, what we thought would be a testosterone moment, she would just put her hand on my chest and say, "The sun is getting low, big guy." But that was the only time I ever had where it just like, it seemed like I was ready to snap for no reason at all.
Yeah. Or sometimes maybe if you're wearing down and your levels are starting to drop from those pellets, or you've missed an appointment or something, that can also affect that. So,
Okay.
yeah. But so you've emphasized to me in the past that the biggest blessing has been in your family life, like becoming a better husband to your wife and a more present, patient father to Olive. So can you share what that transformation looked like in real terms and like how that's changed interactions at home and your marriage and the way you lead your family?
So when the tea's in full swing, it was like, the working out in the morning, I wasn't fatigued. I mean, I felt like I could have went back that evening and did another workout. But with that energy, when I would get off the shop, and it's putting in like, a 10 to 12 hour day, before I was just dragging. With the tea in full swing, I would go in the house, help with dishes, help with laundry. That eased her day quite a bit. So like, I think Amber was super excited that I was so helpful around the house, even after a hard day's work.
Right.
As far as with Olive goes, being able to, go to the pool with her, because, I dropped down, I think it was right around 100 pounds, so happy to go to the pool. I remember Olive and I did like kind of a spring break thing, went down to Daytona, Florida, and I mean, we still laugh about that because it was the first time I got hit on by two guys. So that was, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of cool. I'm not into that, but yeah, so it was just kind of neat being able to be happy with me for a change. And I think in turn, being happy with me made it way easier, because I'm a strong believer that if you're unhappy, the people around you aren't going to make you happy. Mm-hmm. You've got to be happy with yourself. And I just think that the energy, the level of physical fitness that I've achieved that I've never achieved before, just all of the above, like just made me so happy that I was happier to be around for the people, closest to me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah, I feel like that's very significant. Yeah. So one of the most powerful parts of your story is how hormone optimization gave you renewed clarity, energy, and the purpose to make bold decisions. So you've made a bold decision recently, which we won't get into great detail about, but you're currently off of testosterone therapy, and not for any certain health reasons, but just something that...
just something we're doing for a future of our family.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll talk about that at a later episode and whatnot, but so you've been off of testosterone now for
going on a year and a half.
Yeah, and I know you've called me multiple times throughout this time. And,
Trying to figure out if there's a way around it and we could get back on it sooner than later.
yeah, and my answer has always been no. At this stage, and that'll make sense to the audience later. But how have you felt now being off of that? I know we've gained some weight back, and
So I've gained back. We're right about 40 pounds. I've noticed, the muscle shrinking. I don't have. I'm right back to where I was. Like I don't have the energy to work out. Every time I do work out, and I've been fighting through it, it just seems like the fatigue runs on for days. The getting up in the morning kind of sucks. The long days in the shop, like the feet hurting at the end of the day. There's all kinds of little things that are coming back that it was easy to forget about. But like I've got shoulder pain. I've got like an arthritis feeling in my knuckles, and it seemed like a lot of that went away while I was on T.
yeah.
So, yeah.
We've kind of hit you with like everything under the book as far as like natural things, as far as supplements and other peptide options and stuff, and you don't seem to tolerate those things very well in general. Like I would say that you're kind of a rare case. Like we never sell hormone therapy based on weight loss because I don't think that that's fair. I think that it can be significant for some people, and you're one of those people, fortunately, that it works so well for.
Well, and I think too with a lot of those people though is, I've talked to multiple, close friends of mine like, hey, this is the advantage. But as soon as they get on testosterone, they think, okay, now you're going to get fit but there's a lot of work that you have to put in on top of that. And you'll have the energy to do that. You'll have the recovery to do that. But I think with the weight loss side, you have to, make it a steady routine of doing something. You have to move.
Right. I mean, it's the same way in your shop, right?
Yep.
Like if you have a project that needs done, you have to commit to that and
work on it.
Through and work on it. You know?
But I do believe, it's not the do all end all or the fix all, but it gives you that main ingredient that, if you're lacking the energy, if you're lacking the recovery, any of that stuff, that's where the tea really filled in the blank and helped me to excel with that.
Yeah, for sure.
So since I've been off, like I noticed, it seems like that midsection fat is coming back where I've never in the past been able to burn that. I could get lean top and bottom, but just seemed like there was almost like an inner tube around me that wouldn't go away. And I feel like that's where the tea definitely helped burn that area.
Yeah. And I think for you, like your focus at Steadfast is you're extremely driven. You wouldn't be able to win the awards that you've won without your commitment to that shop, testosterone or no testosterone, right?
Yeah.
But I think like you said, like it gives you that extra edge to be able to do more. Like I know some of your friends that have talked to me and they're become worried about you. They're like, hey, Henry's working 16-hour days again in the shop, and it's like they're real worried about you. And I'm like, I think Henry's probably just got something he needs to get done, and
and I think a lot of that too is, so some of the friends you're talking about, I know who you're talking about in particular, they met me at the gym. They met me when I was in full swing, and now they like, hey Henry, let's go for a run, or hey Henry, let's work out at like 5 a.m. And it's like, then I start making excuses, and it's like I just don't have that same energy or that same drive that I had on testosterone.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing most people notice is, I have this extra energy to do, the things that I need to be doing for myself and not just, work whatever that work is.
Yep.
And for you, since you're so driven in the shop to get done what you need to do, you commit everything that you have into that and then forego yourself, right? Because you just don't have it in you. So,
I think, not having that extra energy, it's like I kind of prioritize shop stuff a lot of times more so than the physical stuff. And I notice, like no tea, if I work out in the morning, I mean, that'll cut my day by 5 to 6 hours when I'm like done at the end of the day.
Olive and Amber are probably happy about that.
Yeah.
At least you're home, right?
Yeah.
So, how how has it affected, like being off of it, how has it affected you and Amber, particularly in just your relationship?
Yeah, so as far as our relationship, it's like I notice, so before I didn't really think it was an issue, but now I notice that it's off. Just that whole sex drive has just kind of plummeted. Like, like I try, but it's just not as ready to go as I was, previously on testosterone. So
You feel like you're more irritable?
yeah, I think maybe just the thing coming back in, where I don't feel as happy about myself, where I don't feel as excited, just for life in general. It's kind of like, oh man, it's time to get up and
Yeah.
see how much coffee I can cram in to see if I can get fired up. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah, chomping at the bit to where we're at a point where I can definitely get back on it and get back to the swing of things.
Yeah, hopefully soon. So,
Yeah.
for sure. So looking back at the temporary pause that we're on as far as your testosterone therapy, how has it reinforced the role of hormone balance in sustaining the life and sustaining the changes you've made, especially in showing up for your wife and kid?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so like just basically, since you're not on therapy, how has that shown that this is super important for you in your overall life?
Yeah, so in the future, I know it's more of a have to, not a want to. Yeah, in the future, I just know how active I was with family, how active I was just on my own, missing some of that. I definitely believe that that's one of those things I would love to be back on sooner than later. We've talked about it 1,000 times just because, yeah, I can show up. I can, help with the extra. Last night Amber was ready to make dinner. My little girl got done with the wrestling meet, and she's like, you want to help? And it was like, I knew it wasn't really a question I could answer. Like I had to help, but I didn't want to help, which before, I would have been the first one over helping get things ready. It just having that lack of energy, I'm ready to have that back.
Yeah. So, we, Carrie and I, through kind of your recommendation, started going to marriage counseling. Just like since we work together, it's a must in my opinion. But man, I totally forgot where I was. Oh, I know I was going with this. So you said, like when your wife asks, do you want to help? It's like, well, no, this couch is way more comfortable than, getting up and helping you. So like one thing I've told Carrie is like, hey, when you want me to do something, please just say, hey, will you please come over here and help me with X, Y, or Z? Like that's been a big thing in our marriage. It's just like, all right, don't ask me if I want to, because I don't want to lie to you. Like I want to help you.
I think they want us to want to help them. So you want to help me. I think the right answer is always going to be yes. I love to help you.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I'm glad you asked. I couldn't wait for you to ask me to help you. That's the answer.
Yeah, that's always tough. Like for me, it's just, and I think that's all changing, right? It's like, yeah, I do want to help you now. Like,
yep,
I know how much that means to you, and so I think that's important.
Yep,
so.
And a little extra energy doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, because I know I got to a point where it's like I couldn't sit on the couch very long. It's like I think even Amber was like, seriously, we got to do something again, or come on, babe, let's go for a hike.
Yeah.
I just got off work, or it's.
But right, those are all healthy things that we should be doing, right?
Yep.
Like those are the things we should have the energy to do. Like,
yep. And like we talked about at lunch too. I mean, a lot of people are going to make excuses on like, why they can't do this. But I think a lot of the things that are keeping us on the couch are the things like, so financially, like, hey, I can't afford to do testosterone, but they're paying for all these subscriptions so they can watch Amazon or they can watch Netflix or they can, and it's like, if you start dialing that stuff back to use that money in a way that's going to grow, your health, your being there, there's going to be a million excuses, but them excuses is what usually keeps us on the couch and doesn't want us to help our wives or, doesn't want us to get to the gym.
Or more importantly, in our lives, like our you run a business, I run a business. Like if we're not there and present with the business, like, I mean, you've done a great job being off of it for, what do we say, a year
Yep.
now. And it's like but at the end of the day, you're wrecked, I mean, a 12-hour day is a long day. And
Yep.
when your friends are telling me you've been in there for 16 hours and
The neighbor guy can see when the light's on.
yeah. I mean, that's significant. Like, but being able to show up for your family is also super important. And
Yeah, well, that's more important even than the business.
oh, way
The
more.
family, yeah, if the family life is lacking, then it still drains over into the business. So
Yeah, you were just saying though, like as far as cost goes and like dialing back different things to do that, like I think in the end it's gonna improve your business life as well, and probably has helped your shop life drastically.
yeah. Well, it's just like, when I talk to people, they want to talk about how like, I can't afford this or I can't afford that, and I see the stupid things they spend their money on, whether it's going out to eat or it's drinking or whatever, and it's like the way I looked at it, and I mean, I'm blessed with the shop and we make decent money, so I didn't think it was very expensive. It averages out to around $200 a month, and we also put me on a lot of vitamins and supplements that you don't have to use also with the testosterone, but it's just one of those things where like the overtime, it was really easy for me to justify that because, if I'm hitting a few hours extra of overtime every week, which, I mean, it was way more than a few hours extra, I could pay for that. It's, if somebody can't afford it, I imagine they're going to have so much energy, they could go out and push mow their neighbor's 10-acre lawn and pay for it.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things. I mean, I'm such a believer. It's like, one year for a Christmas bonus, I thought, I'm going to get this for one of my helpers, because I know how it made me feel and I know how productive he's going to be in the shop with that, and I mean, that was a good deal.
Yeah, it's kind of selfish.
Well, kind of selfish, but like I said, I thought it was a win-win for both of us because, at first he didn't notice like the big difference as I did, but then he started talking a little bit about how, well, today I hit a PR, and we went through this for about 2 weeks, and finally I was like, do you think it could be the tea? And he's like, I never thought about that. Yeah. And I mean, so he's hitting these PRs at the gym, but just overall, man, that's great.
Yeah, I think what's tough with, a lot of people that you've referred to us will come in and they're like, man, I want what Henry has. And of course I can't talk to them about you, but, I'll use generalizations. Like, there's a lot of people that are really self-aware of how they feel. And I think that you're one of them. And so, so people like you have this extreme, like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm 16 again. I'm able to do everything.
I didn't even feel that good when I was 16.
Well,
to be completely honest, but I know,
Yeah, you talked about your life and how you were, it was
junk food, just non-active, the whole deal.
Yeah, not to your, my parents did the same thing to me, and my parents were, they were physicians, but it's just all the junk that we were allowed to have, and I mean, we do it to our kids too because you got to get something in them, but really we always strive to shoot for better quality foods, but and I totally forgot where I was going with that, but yeah,
on the finance part.
oh yeah, just that your health is worth the extra little bit of money. I mean, that's a lot of money for sure to a lot of people, but in the end, it may make you more productive at work. You may be able to work those overtime hours like you're talking about. But what I want to know is, how are you making more money working overtime in your own shop? Because when I work overtime, I don't make any extra money.
Yeah. Luckily, I get to bill by the hour.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. If you were billing by the hour, it'd be a little different.
Yeah, for sure. So, no, we're extremely blessed for sure too. So, so Faith has been. Do you want to take a little break? Or are you doing okay right now?
I could definitely go to the bathroom.
Okay. All right. Cool. Let's take a little break, and then we'll get into some faith-based stuff. So.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
All right. So before we left to go to the bathroom. We talked kind of about your transformation, being off of things and whatnot, and so now I kind of want to dive into like the faith aspect. But before I talk about that, I want to dive into something that was like extremely significant, kind of what we were talking about over the break a little bit too. Is just do you remember the first time that we met and what you said to me? You don't?
I think I do,
Okay. Yeah. So
but I think you need to.
yeah. So when Henry and I were talking, thankfully I didn't have a patient after you that day, and so we were able to have a lot longer conversation in the room. And I learned pretty quick that you were a Christ follower and that you love Jesus to death, and that was like super evident to me. And it's always been something that I've struggled with, is like talking about my faith to other people. And I was kind of blown away that that was something that, you know, I could just, it was just like Jesus was just like bleeding through your pores, which was cool. And so you had asked me right before you left, you said, I think you even prayed with me that day, but you know, you said, well, how can I pray for you in this business? And part of the preface to that conversation was that I was telling you that I was struggling because I was working probably almost 30 days a month. And in that work, like, I was unable to go to church. You know, I was traveling to New York to work. I was doing all these things that, like, just to try to make ends meet while starting a business is tough, you know. And so one of the things that I said to you was, when you asked what you could pray for me for, was, as I had been convicted about not being in church and not going to church regularly with the kids, and the weeks that I had off, it was like I just had no energy to do that when my hours were as strenuous as they were. I was working, usually at any given time, I was working 3 or 4 jobs at once, you know, and then one of those jobs was this. But when I said to you, I said, well, pray that this business is wildly successful so that I can quit my other jobs and just do this full time. And you looked at me and you said, I will not pray for you for that. But what I will pray for you for is that this business will glorify God. And if you focus on that, it will become wildly successful, but not on your own doing, which is what I try to think about. I try to think about it every day as I'm driving in, like, okay, how can I glorify God in this business? And so that is one thing that I really focus on in at least my thought process. But the really cool thing that happened is when you started praying for that, but more importantly, when I changed my mindset of what this was going to be, is when my accountant actually, I don't know if I called him or he called me, but we were talking, and he said, why haven't you switched to do Kaja full time? I was like, well, I don't think the numbers are there yet. And he goes, your numbers are there. He's like, so why don't you have a meeting with me and Carrie, and I'll show it to her, because that was part of it, is convincing Carrie, like, hey, we're there, we can do this. We'll be more successful if we just focus on this and nothing else. And so we looked at the numbers, and I said, well, when should I quit my other job? And he said, yesterday. And I said, okay. He's like, I would just give him a 2-week notice and be done. Well, I stuck to my contract and stuck it out for that additional 90 days, you know, because, you know, there was some money involved with bonuses that they had given me, but also I feel that it's important to, you know, honor your word and what you're going to do, and who you work for, even though, you know, like, I know it would have been completely acceptable to just pay back the money that I'd been given and leave earlier. But that was really, really, I think, like, a key piece in this, and I'm forever grateful that you came into my life at that time and really pushed that. So I want to say thank you to that. But
Yep.
do you remember that conversation?
Yep, I do remember.
Yeah.
Yep. I think the most important thing that we'll ever do isn't our career as much as the people we lead to Christ.
Yeah.
And God has given us a platform with our businesses. I don't believe that, it's like there's a lot of people that might not ever go to a church and see a suit and a tie and a preacher. And some of the people that do go, they might not understand them. But, the gift that I've been given in the hot rod world is, we have cars that are doing so good. And then people already start to respect me as a builder. So then they'll respect what I say about the cars. And I've noticed if I insert God, they've already respected on like, hey, you should build your car this way or you should do that. They're going to respect what I say about God a lot of times. Yeah. So I believe that like you have a platform, that can glorify God. And as long as we glorify God, it doesn't mean that our business will be successful. But I think it's a pretty good indicator of like, hey, if we've got that group and we're trying to glorify God, I do believe that God can make our business successful.
Yeah.
A lot of people look at success different ways, and it's like we got to determine what success looks like to us. And sometimes people think that's a dollar sign in the bank, but you've heard it said over and over and over again that, there's not going to be a Brinks truck follow you to your funeral home. And I believe, the Bible talks about our rewards are in heaven. Mm-hmm. So it's like the way we get those rewards are by leading others to Christ. That's our greatest commission. Yeah. So as long as we're doing that and we're trying to honor him and glorify him, I believe that everything else will fall in line.
Yeah, for sure. I always think it's tough. Like doing this podcast is vulnerable, right? Like,
yep.
Talking about your faith is vulnerable. Like Satan's going to use this to attack us. And,
yep.
So that's always tough for me. And I, like, as much as I tell people and people don't think that I care about their opinion or what they think of me, I probably do. That's
yep.
That's that vulnerability. But then I constantly question myself, like, oh, why are you scared to share your faith? Like that to me is like Satan just grabbing a hold and being like, hey, you shouldn't do that because this person's going to think this of you. And
yep. And the fact is we have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Like we're promised, a life as a joint heir with Christ, and we're promised an eternity. But the people that we fail to tell that good news to, that they could possibly suffer like not sharing in that eternity, not sharing in those riches in heaven. And it's like, yeah, I don't have anything to lose. Like, the Bible tells us not to fear him who can kill the body, but fear him who can kill the soul. And so we need to get out of our comfort zone. We need to tell people about Christ because ultimately that's the most important thing we'll ever do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, those rewards are way greater in heaven than they are here. So.
Yep. When people talk about success in a business, and it's like I hear the term blessing misused all the time. So like a lot of people, they'll hashtag blessing beside their cute girlfriend on Instagram or their brand new shiny, Porsche or Lamborghini. But it's like, I don't believe that all things like that necessarily come from God. There's been a lot of times throughout my career and throughout my life that I've ended up with something that, you could call a blessing, but it takes my focus off of God. And that makes me think sometimes, when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, he was tempted with, look out over the whole world and, you can have everything if you worship me. But it's like, dude, anytime we get something that takes our eyes or focus away from God, we probably need to question where it came from and put it in its right place. It's not bad to have money in the bank. It's not bad to have a shiny car. It's not bad to have a boat. It's not bad to have a pretty wife. But we also need to keep in perspective that if we allow those things to take our eyes off of Christ, then they might not necessarily be that blessing we think came from God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful for sure. Yeah.
Yep. As far as health goes, that's one of those things too. It's like we're called to be good stewards of our bodies. So it's one of those things like, we need to take care of that. We need to do the right things. I believe that And I believe that's why God brought you and I together as well, because, you've been able to help me to take better care of a body, which I've been blessed with. Not a single one of us can, do anything, we can do all kinds of things to hurt our body. We need to be just as proactive with doing all those things to make our body last.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm not real good at remembering scripture, but the body talks, or the Bible talks about our bodies being a temple, right? And that, man, I wish I could remember that scripture right now, but
Yep. It talks about our body being a temple. When we become Christians, the Spirit will dwell in our body.
Yeah.
One of the things that gets me fired up is like I could be sitting at a church and seeing a fat preacher, point a finger at homosexuality. And like, I don't care for that, because his sin is just as great as their sin, as far as being, being a glutton. Right. And it's one of those things that, we all struggle with things. We all need God's help. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, there's a lot of, people who claim that they love Jesus, but they have zero self-control at the table, or they have zero self-control when it comes to, hey, I got to get up and I need to work out, And so I believe there's a lot to our health that's honoring Christ as well, because we're taking care of something we've been blessed with,
right?
Which is a body,
Yeah, yeah. How we treat that really affects our daily lives, for sure.
Yep. It affects the way that we can, help our wives. We're supposed to love our wife the same way that Christ loved the church, and he died for her. And it's one of those things that, like, we need to, it's kind of hard to love our wife when she's sitting there, struggling with laundry after she's had a hard day of work, and we're sitting there watching, like, Landman or something,
Yeah. For sure. Man, I love that show.
Yeah, I watch it too.
It's not very great as far as morality goes, but
yep,
that is an incredible show. So,
yeah.
Pretty much anything Taylor Sheridan touches is incredible.
Pretty wild, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we've already kind of dove into the faith aspect of things a little bit, but so faith has been central to your journey. How has God used this health transformation, the family decisions, and even the challenges to draw you closer to Him?
Well, I would say one of the things I noticed when I started running, I would go out, to Mohegan. I would do a lap around from the covered bridge up around, is right around 3.2 miles. And being closer to Him, I know a lot of people run with like the distractions and the music in their ears. And I know Goggins talks a little bit about, not having the music play. And I noticed like one of the first things I started doing was no music, no distractions. I would be rolling onto the trails, and I would kind of hear this voice say, your knee hurts, or, do you really want to run? And I would start fighting through that. And it was usually about that first mile where it sucked the most.
Yep.
And it was just all these, like, it's okay if you walk, like nobody's watching, I was like, so I started fighting things in my mind. And what I noticed was the more I would run, and I would start pushing down those, those voices that told me, you don't have to run, or this hurts or that hurts. Then I started noticing maybe some of the more important life things coming into my head, and being able to push through those and run through those to where, I remember on the trails, I had some of the best conversations with God, just in prayer as I was running, thanking Him for, the things we take for granted, like my feet, being able to move, like being able to, take in His beauty. Like there's nothing more beautiful than being the first person at Mohegan in the morning when nobody else is on the trail, and you're sharing, the river and the trees, and just, the sounds of the birds. It was great. I just thought, those are some of my favorite times in my fitness journey, like being able to connect with Him and connect with nature. And that's not something I could do if I was staying on the couch, or, just my hormones weren't optimized to the point of even having the energy and the recovery to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, when I run, especially trails, like I always try to drag somebody along with me, and I use that as kind of distraction of what, not getting what you're getting out of it, right?
Yep.
That's but now I always use that excuse, like, well, I'm not going to run on the trail with anybody faster than me, so like, I'm not going to pick somebody that's faster than me. I'm going to find somebody that's slower, so when those bears that are living in Mohican now
Yeah.
are after us, at least I can get away and I've got somebody slower.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the running thing, man, I just love it's just me versus me. And it's like, that's a time that I have with no distractions in my ears, no social media in front of my face. It's just a distraction. All the distractions are gone. Yeah. And then I can start battling those things in my head. I noticed that early on in my fitness journey, like, I think sometimes depression is linked towards just not doing things. And it was like able to fight some of that stuff, maybe whether it was something that happened in my childhood or something that happened with like a relationship with friends. It was like, I really got to reflect on those moments and think about those things. And we live in a world that's so full of distractions. Like everywhere you look, there's an advertisement there, this or that, or, and it was like when I minimized the distractions and really got to get out there, I got to fight those things in my head. And that helped me more so, I think come to the reality of things.
Sure.
That, I think a lot of lies in my head that I was able to fight off, it's.
Yeah. Are you still running now?
So I haven't been running for a little while.
Yeah.
I keep waiting on the weather to break, thinking, I'm going to get back to it. And, the lack of testosterone has had me down, and I should push through it more so than I do.
Yeah, I tell everybody, like, the absolute most important thing we can do for ourselves is to have daily exercise. Like, I know if I missed, like, over the holidays, I missed about a week of exercise, and I felt worse than I've ever felt. And I'm optimized, not through my clinic, but through another. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing as far as depression, anxiety, all of those things that all of us struggle with at some point, being down, whatever, like mental clarity, like all of that. So,
yep.
Yeah, I think it's super, super important that we're fighting even when you feel as bad as you do without being on therapy. Like that's the thing that can help us the most, probably. But yeah, you struggle with some back issues recently. Are those getting any better?
Yeah, so I've got a herniated disc. That's been one of those things, so I've been doing therapy on that. I'll get in small workouts, a lot of therapy exercises, stuff to just try to somewhat baby the herniated disc and not overload the herniated disc. So I've been working on a lot of core stuff, trying to get my core stronger to take the pressure off of that. Yeah. And then it also helps me just kind of like not thinking about it, engage my core when I'm doing anything in the shop, whatever that might be.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the other things we talked about, like this is the new year, right? Like we're what, 11 days off of our quote unquote New Year's resolutions. So I've for the, it's kind of the thing you do, right? You set this New Year resolution. So I think about like 10 years ago, I gave up doing New Year's resolutions because I was never committed enough to doing anything. But you had mentioned is like finding your why in what we're doing, whether it be anything, right? Yep. So talk to me a little bit about like what your specific why is, and your faith, your family, those types of things. Like what is your why, and why do you feel that way?
So I know that's one of the things that Goggins talks about a lot is finding your why. And I believe the problem with New Year's resolutions, or they might be like, a little bit spur of the moment, like, well, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. But I don't think they follow through with like, why is that important to you? Why is that, so my dad, he's got diabetes and things are, super bad for him as far as, had toes cut off. I never really took into account like diabetes and how bad the diabetes affects your, like, just the mental state, mental clarity. And so I've seen stuff with him with mood swings and all that. And so my why has been, laying off the donuts, laying off the sugary things, like the sugary drinks. I don't drink sugary drinks. And, the same with the working out thing. It's like, yeah, I didn't want to affect my family the same way that, the diabetes has affected, my dad and even mine and my dad's relationship at times. So, yeah, I do believe that people need to find that thing, whether it's, being able to outplay your kids, maybe be a little bit faster than the guy who tries to kidnap your kids. I think there's a lot of guys out there now that are dads that if, somebody that was a little bit athletic went to kidnap their kid, they're not chasing them down. And I think we need to be that. The Bible tells us that we need to provide for our family. And I don't believe that's just financially. I think that's, mentally, emotionally, physically. And yeah, if you can't chase down that guy that just abducted your little girl, like, there's a problem there for sure.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, we do have to worry about that in our world. But.
Yep. And I think, it's just a lot of people want to fit into a certain clothes or a certain bathing suit or something. And those goals aren't going to be everlasting goals. The first time I got in the gym, I thought, okay, I want to be this weight. And as soon as I hit that goal, all my drive and all my excitement was done. Mm-hmm. So, the way I stage it now is it's like a certain weight is a bonus. Being able to fit in a certain clothes, that's a bonus. But the thing that I'm the most focused on is like, how do I feel through the day? Like, how can I, can I work that day and not feel completely ragged at the end of the day? And that plays a lot on my diet. That plays a lot on, I found out that my body works the best if I don't eat 3 meals a day. Mm-hmm. I think, it's like for years we've been told, you have breakfast, you have lunch, you have dinner. And, during the testosterone, I played with some intermittent fasting. And what I found was my body, if I get too much food, I just feel kind of bloated or I feel kind of blah. And I found out, now it's like I work best on maybe a meal to a meal and a half a day.
Yeah.
If we eat all those meals. So, yeah, but why are you doing it? Ultimately, it's all those bonuses I talked about. That's, those are bonuses. They're not, our whys. Yeah. And if we set that, that weight goal or that clothes goal, I think we can mentally check out, when we hit that. So that just needs to be a bonus and not the goal. But the goal needs to be that falling in love with that lifestyle and living that out day to day so we feel a certain way.
Yeah, and that helps you in your shop, right? I mean.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, it helps you. I mean, even more family, which is we talked about, is way more important than
Yep.
whatever happens in the office or the shop or whatever. So.
Yep. Being motivated to do things, with the girls and all that. That's the most important. So.
Yeah, for sure. So how has hormone balance helped you reconnect with or strengthen your why? I mean, you kind of talked about that a little bit, but
yeah. Well, I believe that was that added thing that just, like I said, it made the whys easier to achieve. Mm-hmm. Like right now, I'm fighting with that because it's I've got the whys. I know the whys, but I notice it's like the fatigue makes it a little bit harder to work out. I'm still working out, not as regularly as I was, but it's just having that just extra catalyst that was able to fight the recovery, fight the exhaustion, fight the fatigue. That was super nice. And
yeah, for sure. So kind of coming down to the end of my questions, but is there anything else you want to throw in there about the why? And
yeah, I would probably just encourage anybody that has never even checked their blood work, just see where they're at. Just kind of figure out hey, am I lacking on testosterone? Am I not lacking on testosterone, but I have a deeper issue? I would have them at least kind of figure out their labs and figure out what their body's doing. And then I would eliminate the excuses. I would figure out, what is it that I can live without so I can make this a priority and, put this in my budget or whatever so that they can feel the, as optimal as they possibly can. I can't say enough good things about, just how good I felt on it, how well I functioned. And that's like, I mean, the podcast was my idea for you.
Yeah.
Because I know like the word's got to get out there. Like guys need to quit being scared. They need to understand like, hey, it's not that I'm getting older. It's that your testosterone's dropping. I've seen multiple guys in their 50s, 60s that are on testosterone. And I mean, they're ripped, like a bodybuilder. And even if that's not what you're going for, but they have the energy to at least show up and achieve those goals. And if your goal is just to, be more active or just to not to feel like you're beat at the end of the day, everybody wants to chalk it up as getting old. And what I've learned on testosterone is it's not so much that you're getting old. It's just that your hormone levels are dropping to a point that you feel old. And, the reason I'm off of it now that we'll discuss later on is like a main decision that I made to further my family was because I didn't feel old. I'm just turned 42 and I know on testosterone I felt better than I did when I was 18.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to, take that step for sure if, their numbers aren't where they need to be. And
yeah, I mean, it can, when you work hours like you do in the shop, at a pure devotion to what you're doing, doing your best to honor God, like that's, that you may need that extra kick, like, and in our opinion, like I tell a lot of people, like we believe that, 300 years ago, these are probably the numbers that most men were at,
yep.
because of soil content, because of, lack of nutrients or processed food or just the way we live our lives as Americans. And so, yeah, I think that's all important and good advice for people to pop in and at least get blood work done. That's the cheapest aspect of it. So.
Well, yeah, and back to that, like the soils and the things changing and stuff, it's like, how many supplements do we have to take now just to cover what should be in our natural foods?
Right.
Like broccoli isn't putting out what it was putting out a long time ago and all that stuff. And like, how many foods and things now actually zap testosterone?
Right.
Compared to build it up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's, when we were in training, that was one thing they brought up. Like I thought that the nutraceutical side of things was just going to be a way for them to make more money, and I thought it was going to be cheesy but after listening to them really not promote their stuff, but just talk about the importance of why nutraceuticals are there was pretty intriguing. I think they said we have about 20% of the nutrients that we used to have in our food just because of the way crops are done now, and they're sprayed on.
I heard somebody say like with broccoli, whatever nutrients we were supposed to get out of a serving of broccoli, you would almost have to eat the broccoli from the time you woke up to the time you went to bed, and you still wouldn't get all the nutrients that it originally had in it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to confirm that or not, but I mean, that's what we were taught in that nutraceutical class, and that was pretty instrumental and made me think like, man, these are things that we really should be committed to, and not only that, but making sure that the proper efficacy is in those supplements and things that we're taking. So
I think one of the things you recommended for me that made a huge change was just the vitamin B.
Yeah.
Like the vitamin B, I couldn't get over the difference on or off vitamin B.
Yeah, it's probably a good spot to plug our sponsor of the show. So that sponsors Vital Core Science, and they're a newer company that we decided to go with, and they have really high quality science-backed ingredients in all of their foods, or not foods, sorry, in all of their nutraceutical products that they have. And we do mandate some of those in our clinic for testosterone therapy, just one of them, but we do have our Vital Core does have a really good B complex that's new. You've been on it, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thanks for the sponsorship. You can check them out at www.vitalcorescience.com. You can purchase all their stuff through there. We also sell them here in the clinic, and there's a couple other places in town that sell them as well. But online's usually your easiest place to get them. So So, kind of in wrapping up, do you have any final reflections on your journey so far? As far as like with hormones being off of them, like what are you excited for in the future? And
Yeah. I'm excited for that day I get to call you and schedule an appointment to, go back on testosterone replacement therapy.
I'm excited about that for other reasons, but I'm
Yep.
super pumped about that. So.
Yep. So I think if you wrap up, maybe just tell the guys what the process looks like. If you're thinking testosterone pellet therapy, just getting your blood work done. I mean, how's it look? Call Josh.
Give us a call, and you can call Kajo Healing Therapies. We're out of Ontario, Ohio. Our number's 567-333-0848, and you can get in touch with one of our staff members, and they'd be happy to get you in for some blood work, and then process from there as we make an appointment after your blood work's back, usually anywhere from a week to 2 weeks out, and we'll sit down and review your labs with you in depth, and then based on your symptoms and your results, we'd make a determination if you're eligible for therapy. That's kind of how it works. But I appreciate you pushing to make this about us, but my goal was to, tell your story, because everybody has their own story. And I think that the stories are super important to hear everybody's individual story. And I think it's helpful for people to be like, oh, well, I feel like that a little bit, or no, that's not me, but maybe you have your kind of your own things that you're dealing with. Like, I mean, I know you feel like it's kind of a miracle hormone is testosterone, and it certainly is and was for you and will be again in the future. But everybody responds a little differently. So like, I say that because I don't want people to be like, oh, I'm going to have those results that Henry does, because I mean, the truth of the matter is most of the time we're improving symptoms by 50 to 60%, but sometimes it's less than that. And I mean,
I felt more like 1,050%.
And your personality type is more boisterous in talking about it, and you're extremely self-aware of how you feel. And that's a really beneficial thing. Some people are not, and it takes them going off it to realize, oh man, that really was, influential for me. And we encourage patients that are like, well, I don't know that the money's really worth it. Like, okay, we'll go off of it, and if you feel bad, then come back to us. But I would say, I try to tell patients all the time, there's no pressure in our clinic at all to do anything, and we don't want you to feel pressured about doing those things, or we want you to feel that it's the right decision for you, and if it's not something we can help you with, we're going to tell you that for sure. But yeah, that's our goal, is to make you feel comfortable in the decision that you make. So yeah.
Cool.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming, Henry. And
congratulations on your first podcast.
Thanks. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our channel. That would be really helpful. So thanks for watching.